Hello, I'm Nigel Williams, CMO with Quadrotech, and today I'm going to talk to you about ABM, in particular how to get radical but stay practical. So let's talk first of all about the why. That's always a great place to start. So why should you get radical? The first thing about ABM is it's badly named. It's really not a marketing program, or shouldn't be. So it's not just account-based marketing, it's the sales and marketing program. And so approaching it with that perspective makes a big difference. If sales think it is a different marketing program, a new marketing program or flavor of the month, there will definitely be some issues in trying to get everything lined up and working appropriately with sales, because it requires sales and marketing to behave differently, both organizations. Barriers need to get broken down, and you need to review some of the traditional roles. In particular, it breaks the cycle that sales and marketing have had for many years. It's got to plan and review rather than work together. And you tend to, as the program matures, you tend to end up working together in real time in the CRM on these accounts. And that's just a very different way to work. Normally it's you plan the campaign, you review the campaign, plan and review. And when you're getting into working more closely, it's a different dynamic, it's a different approach. And so going into this program with a different mindset that says, I'm prepared to make some changes, I'm prepared to get a bit radical about marketing, and sales need to do the same, is very, very helpful. So the post-lead era, it's an interesting idea. This was much discussed at Serious Decisions' recent summit. And it's like a second phase of digital. It's all about what Sirius referred to as demand units, the demand unit waterfall, which is all about buying groups and working with buying groups. It's much more sophisticated. It's got a lot more data in it because it includes intent data, engagement data, first-party data, third-party data, and it looks at a lot more of the signals. So in the lead era, the only signal that counted was the hand raisers that were declaring themselves. And it's totally different in the post-lead era because every signal is important. And ultimately, the way that the program will work effectively is for sales and marketing to work together and synchronize their activities, because if you're both working on the same accounts, you've got to stay connected. Otherwise, you'll trip over each other. And of course, that wouldn't be helpful at all. So it makes a big difference if you can stay synchronized. So what does it mean specifically to get more radical? What are the attributes of a more radical approach to B2B marketing? Well, the first thing is we've always been fairly opportunistic. We'll take a lead from anywhere. And that's really goes away because you become much more targeted. ABM's got numerous tierings, and you need to have rigorous definitions for, we use tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, they're all well defined. But you're either chasing a very small number of very large accounts or a larger number of what most people call named accounts. But regardless, it's a much more targeted activity. That's very different. It's more connected because there's focus not just on an individual contact, but on a buying group and all of the buying signals of all of that buying group. So there's a lot more to the idea of the buying motion, if you like, than that single contact. It's got more moving parts, and those parts are all connected. It is better instrumented. You've got a different marketing funnel, more sophisticated marketing funnel. I've mentioned the demand unit waterfall, which is what most people are chasing. A couple of years ago, that seemed impossibly complex to most people. But now, very quickly, it's upon us, and we're implementing it as we speak. It is less generic as a program because you're going to have to add some personalization, whether it's an account level or a segment level or some other element of personalization. It has to be more tuned to the buyers and the buying group. And lastly, it needs to be better integrated. ABM efforts where there's another platform launch that sales have to log into, probably going to struggle. So it needs to be integrated and get your intent data working with the engagement data, make sure it all surfaced through the CRM, because that's going to make it fly for sales because it's where they live. So to start with, thinking about staying very practical, what kind of foundational questions can we ask to ensure readiness and make sure we're getting off on the right foot? I think the first question is are we ready? And that really breaks down into a couple of components. One is the relationship with sales and marketing and alignment. And if it isn't ready, it's worth taking the effort of getting it ready and making sure that there's effectively sufficient goodwill, understanding, and time committed to the project for there to be some give and take and some flexibility. It will be very difficult if that doesn't exist. Secondarily, and we'll come to this in more detail, there's the tech stack and marketing operations. In some companies, you've got the thorny issue of sales ops and marketing ops and their respective roles. In our company, we're pretty lucky. It's all one group and we all work in HubSpot. Sales and marketing both live in HubSpot. So that works really, really well for us. But making sure that the tech stack is in good order and that you're going to be able to combine and process the additional data, measure it, etc., is really important. Setting expectations, I think, is critical. It's very common to see ABM projects dogged by huge expectations in terms of bigger order values or winning bigger accounts quickly, and it does take time. Even when you're moving fast, and I think we're moving very quickly with our program, the gains and the changes, they are broken down into steps. So you're making quite a few steps, but it takes a while for those steps to become operational. And that's true for any demand program because revenue, after all, is a lagging indicator. Linked to that is it over ambitious? Are you trying to do too much at once? We started with, as I'll show you, just the simplest program imaginable to get going with sales and to get them working. And it was very much on their terms. They said, this is what we'd like, and we delivered it for them. And on the basis of that and achieving some success with them, we then took the step into the technology on a really firm footing. And the last question is really critical. Will sales adopt it? And I think the answer is no, if it's yet another platform. Certainly most of the sales teams I've worked with, if it doesn't get surfaced in something they already live in, it's going to be challenging. And there's certainly solutions and implementations out there which require yet another platform, yet another system. So let's talk about our ABM journey. The pilot, as I said, couldn't be simpler, really. Get the sales teams into their accounts that they wanted to get into via quality webinars. So set up our own webinar program, make sure that we was well promoted, give them the tools to be able to invite their prospects, and really focus on very valuable information, high quality speakers, high quality topics, well researched, good content. And then that would be the entry point for sales into these larger accounts. And it's a good start point, very simple, and much better to say, is this of interest, and invite people to something that's a thought leadership and could add some value to their lives rather than, hi, have you got a project? So we built that, started to promote the webinars, and we gained speed in that program quite quickly. I think the record this year was about 1,000 registrations. Took a bit of time to get there, but we built out a good quality webinar program. We'd always had one, but it was pretty small, which had a lot more reach and had a lot more, if you like, there was more presence from the speakers, and they had a lot more in the way of drag, if you like, in the market. People would come and hear them speak. So we built that out, got the sales into a few of their target accounts. It started to work. So we would get registration attendance, plenty of registrants and some attendees from the target accounts, and we were off to our journey. So once we had that, and we had that to a reasonably mature level, we wanted to move forward. And what we wanted to do was to combine intent data. And we wanted to do that in a systematic way. And there were a couple of really big goals for us. We really wanted to be able to visualize on an account timeline And we wanted to be able to combine the intent and the engagement data. And integration with our CRM and our map, because it's one and the same, we use both, was really critical. And that was one of the reasons when we looked very closely at the market, HubSpot and Triblio work together really well, bidirectional integration, and it really works superbly. We're also very impressed with the account visualization. So there's an account ABM analytics module in HubSpot that's put in there by Triblio, and that provides that visualization. And also there's a smart score which combines the engagement data with the intent data, and that's critical because what you're able to do then is really build a program where you can start to leverage intent, act on that intent, start to get engagement and pull it all together rather than have to do any of that manually. So we built out the program, and we set up an ABM task force. And the way we started the program was pretty straightforward. We started out with targeted ads, and we would target those ads and then refine them on the basis of the intent data. And of course, also on the basis of the performance of the ads. So what you end up with is, and it's quite surprising, some variance in the ad performance for these accounts. And we just adopt the ones that are strong and we get rid of the ones that are weak. Gradually, you end up serving the strong ads to high performing ads to everybody. So we're driving them to our website and then we engage them. And obviously we're using as much as we can to try and take people on a journey. No good just sending them straight to the product pages. Most people aren't ready to buy. So it's a resource journey. There's resourcing pop-ups and retargeting. And we've also got a lot of personalization, which is also an important part of the Triblio platform. And when you look at it, this is a very simple kind of visualization of the account timeline in terms of just blowing up the key so that you can see it a little bit better. You really start to see how this is working in terms of the correlation between intent and engagement. And the way that we thought about the program very quickly is about visibility first and foremostly, being a deliverable to sales. So you end up with a real straightforward deliverable to sales, which will be you now have visibility of our company and our brand and our solutions to these accounts. And you can very, very clearly see that. That in itself is a deliverable and well worth having, because most salespeople simply don't have that. You know, they're trying to target accounts and hit accounts, and they may not have any brand visibility or awareness whatsoever. It's extremely hard to go generate demand without having awareness. Of course, what you want in the longer term is to take that awareness and build demand through conversion. And that comes, but over time, it does take a while to get that conversion. But what you can see on the screen here is you've got a combination of all your ad impressions, and we can see our Facebook ads, our LinkedIn ads. We've got a whole variety of them. That's correlated with the intent score, with the web visits and the clusters of web visits and the known visitors and the form conversions. So this is something I've personally been trying to do in a number of different companies over the years. I see this is really important just to be able to visualize the account journey and combine all of these signals together. So if we wrap everything up, what are the key takeaways that we've learned? We're very keen on working with sales plays. Sales plays are a very useful way of sales and marketing working together. And they're super for ABM because you're able to really map out the account, the buyer's journey, and align that with the sales steps. And I think that's one of the key questions to ask is, have you mapped out the phases of that account journey, that buyer's journey over time? If you've got that well mapped out, it's pretty easy to start to synchronize the actions of sales and marketing. So if you envisage that timeline and you think about the stages, whatever stages, we break it into just the 3 stages of the serious buyer's journey, and then we align the sales steps to it. And then we start thinking about the marketing pieces of that and the sales pieces of that. So we get all of that worked out, because in our ABM 2.0 project, everything is done by campaigns. So we build out these campaigns, and those campaigns align to specific sales plays. And that's where we can build all that logic out, which is very, very useful. With all of that worked out, then one of the key questions is how have you really defined how you're going to act on the data? So the intent has gone up. Is sales going to jump on that, or do you want to build awareness, get to a certain threshold, and have marketing effectively take the lead to a certain point, then do a handover? I'm working all of that out. And actually, you don't need to answer that question immediately, because it takes a little while for the data to build. But as soon as you've got enough data, you can start to refine the process of how sales and marketing work together based on the intent data, but also on the engagement data that you're now receiving as people start to engage with your site. I do think it's really critical. Not everyone thinks this way, but certainly seems to be key to the way Triblio think. And we were like minds immediately, because it strikes me as really important. Can you combine intent and engagement data? If you've got intent as an overlay and you can't combine it, or it's manual, that's difficult to work with. There's a fine line between this visibility and awareness and getting into the demand, where you're getting real buyers starting to gather the buying team and assemble and get ready to purchase. And it makes a lot more sense to me if you can actually combine that in a single score. And the last one, I think, is how frequently do you meet as a team? Because that close synchronization being so critical, my personal belief is if you're not meeting weekly, it's going to be difficult to keep that synchronization. We certainly do. We have a dedicated meeting once a week, and that works well. There's some back and forth for sure, because what we've been learning is the roles of sales, as they were traditionally, and the roles of marketing are shifting a little bit. We're listening to sales recordings of calls and then discussing them with sales, and we were getting into their world a little bit more. But we wouldn't be able to do that if we weren't on a call that is dedicated to this program once a week. We review all the data, and we ask sales, what's new, what's different, what successes have you had, where have you crashed and burned with content, what's worked, what hasn't, in each of the campaigns and with all of the accounts. And we bring up all the data and we review it. And we've got kind of a chart now, so we can show the top movers, the top new entrants, etc. And it's a good, vibrant discussion that we have every week with sales. So I think that's one of the key ones. So with that, that is our review, if you like, of the ABM program. The title is Get Radical but Stay Practical. I think those things work. Be prepared to do things differently, change your role a bit, shake it up. But at the same time, being practical means keeping it relatively simple to start with, knowing the changes that you make. The way we think about it when we started with ABM 2.0 was, here's ABM 2.0. As we made a change, that became ABM 2.1, 2.2. We track it and we can backtrack. If things don't work properly, we can go, that didn't really work. Go back. Keep it nice and simple, because over time, it does get more complex. And so enforcing simplicity makes a really big difference. And that's really what I mean by stay practical, is keep it grounded. Don't try and do too much at once. It's working for us. We're really enjoying it. And thank you very much for your time today.